Welcome back to The Drive, hour number 3. Lee Versage, AJ Jakubek, and Kenny Walls with you. Here's what you need to know on a Tuesday afternoon. The injuries still piling up here for the Ottawa Redblacks. RJ Harris, receiver, in a walking boot today. Nolan McMillan, whether he can go is day-to-day. In fact, Paul LaPolice saying a lot of guys were day-to-day. No Cleon Lang on the defensive line as well for Ottawa as they prepare for their home opener coming up on Saturday, 7 o'clock against the BC Lions. Right here on TSN 1200. After our show, we're going to take you to the Women's World Hockey Championship. Switzerland and Canada. Canada 2-0 so far, and one game ongoing. The United States all over Russia 6-0 with 11 minutes to go in that game. The Blue Jays remain 4.5 back of the wild card, and they host the Chicago White Sox tonight. That is a 7:07 first pitch, and it will be Jose Barrios on the mound for Toronto and Dylan Cease on the mound for the Chicago White Sox. Nick Arbuckle, Cody Fajardo, and Greg Ellingson are your top performers for Week 3 in the CFL. And Owen Power, who was drafted first overall by the Buffalo Sabres, informed the Buffalo Sabres that if they drafted him, he would be going back to the NCAA in Michigan in his pre-draft interview back in July. So although he just announced it a week or two ago, he told the Sabres that that's exactly what he would do, and then he did it. And he is going back to Michigan. And right now, that's what you need to know. Ian Mendez, senior writer from The Athletic, coming up at 4:20. And AJ, we're going to get to talk to him about, he put out a huge survey about the arena here in Ottawa over the next little while and polled a number of people. So that'll be an interesting conversation with him as we look forward to, talking some hockey. And I think as the next week or two, as we get into September and then into training camp, things like the arena, things like the contracts for Brady Tkachuk and Drake Batherson are going to come up. And we really kind of get back into the National Hockey League. Looking forward to it after a little bit of a break here.
Yeah, no doubt. I'm really intrigued to kind of pick his brain on what he thought, with the survey numbers. And I know they had over 1,000 people responding, so that's terrific stuff. So, yeah, just don't want to give up too much for the next segment, but certainly looks like most people want LeBreton. Surprise, surprise, right?
Yeah, I think that's been pushed for a long time, right? As the number one place that's possible to play. And I'm not sure that people know exactly the details of, like, if you put an arena somewhere else, what are the logistics of it? People just don't know the answers to those questions. I'm not surprised that LeBreton would be number one. But as you said, he asked a lot of different questions and had over 1,000 people respond. So we'll talk to Ian about that and more. I think one of the interesting things as we get closer here to camp, people have brought up the Brady Tkachuk contract, right? And there's some people that are very concerned about what Brady Tkachuk is going to do. I find it interesting who's going to blink first. If you go back to that 2018 NHL draft, where Brady Tkachuk was taken number 4 overall. Of the people that came into the National Hockey League right away, Rasmus Dahlin, number 1. He doesn't have a contract. Andrei Svechnikov, number 2. RFA, doesn't have a contract. Jesperi Kotkaniemi, Brady Tkachuk, Quinn Hughes. 5 of the top 7 guys who were picked and came into the NHL and now their contracts are done. None of them have contracts right now going into the season. And not that Brady Tkachuk is comparable to those other guys. I don't think that he is, but just from a macro view of the situation, all of those guys are probably waiting. Like Svechnikov's got almost identical stats that Brady Tkachuk does, even though he's a completely different player. Quinn Hughes, He's going to compare himself to others outside of that group, guys that have signed contracts like Heiskanen in Dallas, amongst others, Cale Makar in Colorado. But still, I think it's interesting that those 5 of 7 guys haven't signed contracts yet. They're all RFAs going into the season.
Yeah, I'm not expecting anything until right around when camp starts, to be honest. So I know some people really want to talk about that for 2-3 weeks leading up to that. Well, I don't know what else there is to say. It's going to be a deadline type deal. I don't know what the deadline's going to be. Is the deadline the start of the regular season? Is the deadline the start of training camp? It's going to be, if they get something done between now and training camp, then I'll eat my words. But
no, but AJ, I don't think anybody's really that concerned that a deal isn't going to get done. It's more the concern of how long it's going to be, the contract for Brady Tkachuk. And I think it's really interesting who's going to blink first. Like if Svechnikov signs a contract or Kotkaniemi signs a contract, will others follow at that point? Like how soon will the dominoes fall and who wants to go first?
Svechnikov is certainly more of a comparable for Brady Tkachuk than Kotkaniemi.
Yeah. I agree, but they're all from the same class and they all haven't signed.
Yeah. No, that's the thing. Some of these people getting worked up about want to talk about Brady Tkachuk. I mean, I'm happy to answer the question, but the reality is I don't think anything's getting done for a couple of weeks, and I have no idea. I heard JR today, 98% it's going to be a bridge, and maybe he's right. I have no idea. I have no idea if it's going to be a bridge or if it's going to be long-term. Certainly if you're Brady Tkachuk's camp, why would you want to do long-term at this stage? I don't know if there's really any upside to doing long-term at this stage.
Well, of course there is. Money in your pocket.
Unless there's a long-term real, this is not, people talk about long-term injuries. This is not the 1960s or even the 1980s. If he gets a long-term injury and he comes back, you don't think he's going to get the type of money that he could get today in a long-term contract? I highly doubt it.
Some people want security. Why did Thomas Chabot sign an 8-year deal?
Yeah, some people want security, but it doesn't necessarily mean, to me, there's, from his standpoint, I don't know. I mean, I understand why you could go down that road for sure, but with the uncertainty of COVID and, the numbers around the league in terms of where they're going to be at the next couple of years, you're probably going to get, and maybe you backload it, right? Maybe that's the way you handle it. Maybe it's like, okay, you know what? Early on, I'm not going to front load it. I'm going to backload it because I want more money later when I think there's going to be less escrow. Because I think there's probably going to be a lot of escrow coming in the upcoming season, just given the uncertainty with the Canadian markets, right? Well, there's no indication that, the Torontos and Ottawas and Montreals of the world are going to be able to even welcome, say, 10,000 people in October. We don't know that yet.
Right.
As of right now, it's 1,000 here.
Oh, listen, whether I agree with you or not, whether a bridge deal is better for Brady Tkachuk, what if the ownership here decided, you know what, we are going to send a message that we want everybody else here, and we're going to set the bar for this team for the next 5 to 7 years because nobody's going to make more than Brady Tkachuk. So let's just set it right now and make sure that everybody knows that Brady Tkachuk and Thomas Chabot and some of the future, that they're going to be here and they're committed to being here. So we're going to overpay on a long-term deal to make sure that we get the trust of the market. I'm not saying that's going to happen, but certainly that's a possibility that the team looks at it that way.
You still need 2 to tango. And they may feel that they can wait and get everything they want out of a long-term deal once he hits UFA status at maximum money.
So if the Ottawa Senators, hypothetically, put out the same deal that they gave Thomas Chabot, 8 times 8. You turning that down if you're Brady Tkachuk?
I'm not Brady Tkachuk, so it doesn't matter.
No, but it would be something to think about.
Well, for sure. But I don't think it's a slam dunk that just because you throw 8 times 8 in front of him that he's going to go out and sign it.
Well, of course it's not. He might want to wait. But I'm just saying don't disregard the possibility of Ottawa understanding how important he is and deciding very aggressively to go out and do it. I don't know whether they will, but I think they should. I think they should overpay him and make him an offer he cannot refuse. Because what it would do to earn the trust back from the fan base and the rest of the team and everything else, you set your future now by making sure that there's an offer to a franchise guy that he cannot refuse.
Still need 2 to tango.
Yep. Ian Mendez from The Athletic, senior writer, will join us next. We'll talk about the arena and a survey that Ian and The Athletic put out with some very interesting results. That's next on The Drive on TSN 1200. Welcome back to The Drive. Lever Sage, AJ Jakubek, Kenny Walls, and a lot of words there as we enter this segment. Looked forward to this for a long time. Haven't been able to do this for weeks to say that we're going to go to the Gabriel Pizza Hotline and welcome senior writer from The Athletic. It is Ian Mendez. Good afternoon, Mr. Mendez. How are you?
Guys, doing great, Lee. Great to be back with you.
Yeah, he was on last week with us, though, Lee.
No, I understand. I haven't talked to him in weeks. AJ?
Okay.
Miss my old friend, Ian Mendez. And I didn't have the sincere, it's great to talk to you. And that didn't feel as sincere as it could have been.
No, it didn't. It certainly felt a little forced and awkward, Lee. Just like our time on the radio.
Oh, Ian, it hurts. It took a long time to get through your article at The Athletic, but you had a number of very, very important questions that you asked, and you got. First of all, you did a survey on the arena, where it should be, a whole bunch of different questions on what the future plans of a new arena would look like. Just talk about the genesis of the article, where it came from, and really impressive to see how many people voted in your poll.
Yeah, and you know what? And I think it's. I mean, the genesis is really it's August, and we got to kind of come up just like I'm sure you guys do every day, where you're thinking we got to come up with something unique and engaging.
Like the last 2.5 hours, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. And so, for me, I thought, when Eugene Melnyk made some comments back in May about the fact that the arena in Canada, it's time that and I think he used the phrase 5 to 7 years. I got to find a new home. To me, it's like, okay, well, the clock is ticking, and obviously LeBreton is on hold, and that is really disappointing for a lot of people, but it doesn't mean that the idea of a Senators Arena is dead. In fact, I think it's very much on the table, and so I just thought, hey, wouldn't it be neat to try and pick the brain of Ottawa fans and say, hey, like, where would you put the arena, and what would the seating capacity be, and would you like this, and that? And it was great. I mean, we got, I think it was like about 1,400 people that participated in the survey, which is not bad, for the month of August. And obviously we're behind a paywall, so but you get that number of people engaged in something, I think is good. And I think anytime you get a survey and you get decent number of people, whether I don't know if the number is 500, 800, or 1,000, but once you get a decent sample size, I think you can start to paint a pretty accurate picture. And I think my biggest takeaway from that exercise was, I asked the first question I asked was, if you had no restrictions, so let's obviously take the LeBreton stuff and the red tape out of the equation. If there were no red tape, no issues, where would you like to see the arena? And roughly 70% of people said LeBreton Flats. So to me, guys, that shows you the idea that once you plant a seed or once you tell people that this is where we're going, it's really hard to put the genie back in the bottle and tell people, well, you know what, we're not going to go there. We're going to go to Canada. We're going to go to Gatineau. Or we're going to go somewhere else. So I still think, based on that survey, it seems like about 7 of 10, or at the very least, the majority of Ottawa fans still are holding out hope for an arena at LeBreton.
Which makes the most sense, because if you're out there, right, and you drive by there, or even if you take the train, I mean, there's two stops. There's 2 stops, and there's really nothing there. Like, if you live there, it's great. If you're going to the War Museum, it's great. If you're going to Blues Fest when it happens again, it's great. But beyond that, like, there's not a lot of people hanging around that field right now.
No, exactly. It's like, I mean, look, it's sitting there, and when you read the NCC's latest proposal, which came out this spring, it unequivocally leaves a hole and a spot for a major event center. Right? And they don't even beat around the bush. When you read the report, it's, hey, we still think that there's room for an entertainment facility here that could be an anchor point. So the dream is not dead. I want to make that clear. The dream is not dead, but getting it to that point is really hard. But I like you said, AJ, like, if you've been on that train, or you go up Booth Street and wherever it is, however you go, Wellington, and you see that spot, you just think to yourself what it could be. And it's, again, even if they end up in Canada and they build another rink, okay, well, worst case scenario, we're in Canada. But like I said, I think when you put that idea in people's minds and you're so passionate about it, like everybody was with the Senators, they were very passionate. They made it very clear that moving downtown and moving to that spot was important to them. And then obviously they've changed their minds, or have not felt that that's the case anymore. But it's really hard to tell people that this is where we're going, and you have the sketches and you have the visions and you have the press conferences and you have it all, and then you take it away. It still leaves people feeling like, I wish that's where the arena was.
So then question number 2, if LeBreton Flats is not available, where would you like to see it located? And you gave some options. This one, I think, a little bit surprising, Ian, only to the fact that there was almost double the votes of any other vote getter, that it would be at Lansdowne TD Place and not somewhere else, back in Canada or at Herdman or some other places.
So, and I'm really curious to get the perspective from the two of you, because both of you spend a lot of time at Lansdowne and at TD Place, and you'll be there again on Saturday, and I'm sure you guys are pretty excited about that. But logistically, I'm curious, because the two of you are very familiar with those traffic patterns. But you're coming in and out of TD Place, obviously, a little bit before people, but we're in and out, like, in the summertime, right? Here's my question to you guys. With the LRT being where it is, and knowing that it's likely we're never going to get the LRT to the Glebe, right? Like, I don't think that that's going to happen. Just from a logistical perspective of getting, and we're going to use the number 17,000. 17,000 people are in that arena, in that little parcel of land between Bank Street and the canal. Do the two of you think it is feasible to shuttle people in and out in January in a manner that would be satisfactory to people? I want to hear that from the two of you, because both of you are very familiar with that rink and this football stadium. You've been in and out. Guys, can it be done?
You're the guest, Ian, okay? We're the hosts.
But I'm it's a Throwback Tuesday where I'm asking questions on the drive.
Exactly.
You know what? Like, from my take, I don't know where you're going to put a 17,000 seat arena there. I mean, I know there is room. I know I don't know exactly what the plan is in terms of a new arena there, but it's probably going to be like 5,000 or 6,000, right? So I think they've got, like, I just don't think it's realistic, right? Unless OSAG decided to buy the Ottawa Senators, but I don't think that's going to be in the cards. Otherwise, I just don't think, to me, it's a moot point, because it's just not going to happen anyways. Like, you can talk about all different possibilities, but as long as Eugene Melnyk is the owner, like, the first place, if Eugene Melnyk isn't the owner, then you would think the new owner would probably look to put a new facility at LeBreton, right?
Yeah.
And as long as Eugene Melnyk is the owner, I don't think he's going to be putting an arena on TD Place and OSEG property, right? Where he's not going to get to benefit from it. So to me, I mean, I could answer the question, but it just feels like it's pointless. I know I'm not good at hypotheticals, right?
So
if Matt Conisvita was here, he'd be giving it to me about hypotheticals.
Well, I think we're giving it to you now because Ian just asked you a question. He doesn't ask very many questions as the guest.
It's just pointless.
Okay, so I guess AJ feels that way. For me, Ian, this might, I don't know if this will surprise you or not, but it would be my vote. Now, I get the logistics of what AJ just talked about. I totally understand. Do I ever think it'll happen? I'm not sure. But I think there's a couple of things here. Number one, when you give other ideas and say, oh, put it at Herdman Station or put it on another parcel of land, people don't actually know what that's like. They don't know what it's going to look like. They don't know exactly how they're going to get there and what some of the logistics are. The one thing people do know about going to TD Place is the logistics of getting there and what it's going to take to be able to do it. Now, in the winter, is it tougher? Yes. But I could argue that in the summer, there's 9,000 more people that are going to a game for the Red Blacks when there's 25,000 people there and the game is sold out than would be going to a new 17,000 seat arena. Is it the best? No. But I think the known quantity of what it's like to get to an event, what it takes to get there, what's around there to go and have a drink or have some dinner beforehand, what are the bus situation like, we've done this now because the Red Blacks have proved it over the last 6 or 7 years in the 67s as well. And I think when you give people known quantities, they're just more comfortable with that than they are the complete unknown. And it might turn out to be that if you told everybody the plan at what Herdman Station was going to be or another parcel of land or even in Gatineau, and people understood how easy it might be, they might change their minds. But the only other thing they know other than going to Canada right now or what's at LeBreton is going to an event at TD Place. And people had these concerns in 2014 when the games were coming on for the Red Blacks. And you know what? They made it work. Now it's only 9-10 times a year. Totally understand it's a different animal, but at least it's in the middle of the city.
Yeah, but I think I would be disappointed. I don't know if you guys agree. I'd be disappointed if this new arena wasn't accessible by the LRT. And that includes Canada. Like, to me, I'd have less of an issue with the arena at Canadian Tire Center if the LRT ran all the way through the West End, right? So, like, past Bayshore, right through, just right there. Like, wouldn't that alleviate a lot of people's issues? Because I think what it is, if you live in Orleans or even if you live downtown and you get on that Queensway at 5:45, thank goodness there's the pregame show on 1200 to entertain you on the way. But there's a lot of times where all you're seeing are red brake lights from about that old gold Corral building there near Carling to the arena. And I think if people could jump on a train and come back to the city center or to their car, whatever, I think it would alleviate a lot of issues. So my only thing is, I love the idea of the arena at TD Place. Don't get me wrong. I do love the central location. I just, me personally, I want to see this thing accessible by train because I think that's going to help a lot of people.
The one thing from your survey that stood out was Canada's not very popular in terms of the arena placement, but it's still more popular than Gatineau.
Yeah, and I think I don't have the survey in front of me, but I want to say only 5% of people said that they would be, happy, or very happy if the arena was in Gatineau. And so that means 95% of your fan base would have some level of, displeasure with the decision. And it was closer to 60% that were really upset. So I still don't feel like that was, rooted in anything tangible. And I don't blame, if I'm Eugene Melnyk and I feel like I'm getting the short end of the stick and I'm putting myself in his shoes, well, absolutely I'm going to openly muse about things and throw things out there to see, kind of test the waters. I don't blame him for that. Like, I understand how these things work. I have never felt like logistically or realistically that Gatineau was ever on the table, right?
Yeah, I would agree. As somebody that doesn't think it's that big of a deal to go across the river, it's not like you're talking about, 15, 20K into Gatineau. I think that's personally a little bit silly, but I mean, that's if people feel that way, they feel that way. One thing, Ian, I was really anxious to talk to you about is you almost got your dream. You almost hit the absolute gold mine when it comes to an even poll. As I scroll down here to number 11, would you like to see a dedicated fan or cheering section in the new arena where fans are encouraged to sing, chant, and constantly make noise during a game? It was almost completely even when it comes to yes or indifferent.
Yeah, and you know what? The next question in this survey was even just super intriguing, and it's one that I'm sure maybe AJ would have an opinion on, which was, what about when Toronto or Montreal comes to town? Would fans in Ottawa endorse the idea of an away section or essentially a visiting section, which is you give two, and might be 2 or 3 sections of the arena. You give them away and say, hey, Leafs fans, that's where you're sitting, and we don't have to deal with you. We don't have to sit with you. We know, and that idea actually garnered more support than the idea of a supporter section and cheering section. And I know that they've done that at Canadian Tire Center. I want to say it's Section 312 that they've had that for a number of years. Remember, people were encouraged. You could bring a drum, you could make noise, you could stand, you could do that stuff, and it kind of petered out. Like, it never quite took off in the way that I think some people hoped it would. And I think at the end of the day, whether or not it's a cheering section or something, I think people just want the ability to have more of a lively atmosphere inside the arena. And I personally don't mind it. I would love to see it, and it probably does create a little bit more of a European type of atmosphere with that type of thing going on.
Yeah, I mean, the key is having enough people, right? Like that's the thing. Like, if you've got 10 people doing it, it kind of loses its effect. But if you've got enough people, and look, if you're one of the 10, it's I applaud you, right? But you kind of need at least a few hundred to make a bit of noise. We've seen that with Atletico Ottawa in the old days, early days of the Fury. Like, they had really good supporters support. But, as the years progressed and people got mad about different things, I'm mad about Paul Dalglish. I'm mad about Nikola Popovich, and they had good reason to. I'm mad about they left the NASL. Now I'm mad that they didn't join the CPL. And next thing you know, there was like 20 people there, and, it didn't really register. And all of a sudden now, even if there's 2,000-3,000 at an Atletico game, like we saw 12,000 at the first, but the next couple of crowds are obviously midweek games and a little bit smaller. The noise is palpable coming through on the radio as I can hear it loud and clear through my headset. And it makes a huge difference in terms of atmosphere. So it's one of those things that, yeah, I'm all for, but you kind of need a certain amount of people to sign up for it. Like, it's one of those things like, okay, if we get this many people to sign up for it, we're in. But if we don't, if it's 10 people, then guess what? We're just not going to bother. That's kind of how I would look at it.
But what happens? Here's a legitimate question for this cheering section, okay? Let's say Ottawa's playing at home on a Thursday night against Toronto, and then Saturday, Montreal's here. I don't know about you guys. I've reached that point, but if you've screamed your lungs out on Thursday, do you have enough to come back on Saturday?
Oh, Ian, stop.
The same amount of noise?
Stop.
Do you?
Yes. You're a fan. Yes, Ian, you do. I'm surprised by you, Ian.
What do you mean?
I'm a little bit surprised. Yeah, I think if you like the idea of that, you like the idea of it, don't you? Like, as far as Thursday, Saturday, whenever the games are, you're going to go.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I'm wondering the difference in segregating a Montreal or Toronto crowd as opposed to having your own cheering section where you're making noise.
The other thing, too, is in terms of those away sections, I mean, they've eaten up so many tickets. Like, what are you going to do? You're going to say that if you sit, like, in Europe, like, for a lot of places, you have to basically say, like, if you're going to be in the home section, you can't be an away fan. You can't show up with the gear. And so, like, I don't know if they can mandate that. They haven't really done that anywhere in North America where they say, guess what? If you want to be a Leafs fan or a Habs fan, here's where you get to sit. But otherwise, you're not buying these seats, right? So if boyfriend's going with girlfriend and one fan is a Sens fan and the other is a Leafs fan, well, guess what? You're not going in your jerseys together because you're either going in one section or the other. I don't know how they would mandate that here if they're going to do it the same way that they do it in Europe. And it takes a lot of security to basically do something like that.
Yeah, and remember, I think it was in Tampa Bay, right? Did the Lightning not get in some hot water a couple of years ago because there was like the club section where they told people you couldn't wear a jersey other than Tampa's, and then it got to the point where people were complaining, saying that
Elaine Bennis showing up with her Baltimore jersey.
Exactly, just like the Seinfeld episode.
So there were so many questions on this survey. What really did surprise you when it came to like looking back? Well, you have 40 questions in all?
Yeah, 40 questions. And you know what I love, though? I did love the fact that the last question was, hey, tell us something that, we omitted from the survey that you'd like to see. And that's where there were some awesome questions and awesome ideas and awesome concepts.
Mm-hmm.
Just different ideas that I thought were really good. And I think at the end of this, I think you really, truly realize that, fans are ready for the next generation of an arena. And I think, if you're asking me what's the one thing that didn't surprise me, and Lee, I know you're a guy that's always been, you've probably been talking about this for a long time, but the idea that we could get betting kiosks or, wagering windows inside the arena. And I asked the question, would you have an issue if inside the arena there was kiosks and windows? Because I think in Washington, where the Wizards and the Capitals play now,
yep.
there is, I think William Hill runs a sports book right out of the arena. And this is something that we need to wrap our heads around, is that line between professional sports and gamblers has been erased. And it's no longer this thing that is done in the dark alleys with, seedy people. This is stuff on the up and up, and leagues are participating, and the leagues are benefiting. And I asked the question, would you have a problem? And it came back pretty clearly that people wouldn't have a problem. Like, I think it was 10% of people that said they wouldn't be happy. Another 10% of people said, I wouldn't be overly happy. But for the most part, I would say 2/3 of people seem to indicate that they wouldn't have a problem. So that was big. And then the other one, you guys have been on the other end of this, and you've heard the punchlines for years about, oh my gosh, they don't have hot water in the arena, and I can't believe they don't have hot water for the fans. And so I put the question, how important is it to you that really, honestly, there's hot water coming out of the faucets in the washrooms? And only 28% of people said, yeah, it's super important to me. And again, I know that probably in the COVID world that we live in, you probably do want to have access to warmer water for washing your hands. But for all the jokes that have been made over the years about ice-cold water running from those faucets, it certainly didn't feel like it was reflected in that manner in this survey.
Ian, I've been here 15 years. I had no idea there was no hot water. This is the first I've ever heard of it.
You're burying the lead on the story. AJ Jackieback has never washed his hands.
No, I just never. All the time. I always wash my hands.
Maybe because it's so cold, hey? Like,
I don't care.
So
I could care less about cold. I just don't. The only thing, like, if it's anywhere from cold to warm, it's fine. The only thing you don't want is completely 100% hot water. But if it's anywhere else along the spectrum, cold to warm, I'm good. Wash my hands, put the soap on.
What have you done to us here on August the 24th, Ian?
I don't know what the big deal is. I can't believe there's all these nitwits complaining about no hot water. What are you expecting to put a cup of coffee in there, or what's the deal?
Hey, how am I going to make my ramen noodles without hot water? But no, listen, you guys have heard it. I'm sure you get the joke.
I've never heard it. Never heard it once, honestly.
I've heard
years here.
I've heard it a lot.
How hosted this hosted a post-game
people
show?
You know what? I'd probably skip over those ones.
What? So, listen, next time you're hosting the post-game show, AJ, and somebody writes in, the power play is running at the same temperature of the faucets at the arena. Now
I'll tell them to lump it. I'll tell them to lump it, and I'll say move on. Come up with something better than that.
Oh my.
Had no idea.
Ian, I don't even know how to get this back on track here. One of the things, as you said, the betting thing, I think it's here, and whether people like it or not, like whatever. If you want to put $5 on the fact that you think the game's going to go less than 6 goals, and that keeps your interest in a 4-1 game in the third period, I don't think it's bad. And that's, you know me, I've loved it for a long time. So
Since you were 3.
Yeah, 3 3/4. Almost 4. But that's kind of here to stay. I think more importantly, right, is the accessibility to the arena, no matter where it is. Like how can people get to it, and can they be comfortable, and can there be some restaurants, some bars, some hotels outside where you can go down to the event? It's like if you go to the Bell Center, or if you go to different places, and you've been to almost every arena out there. For most arenas, not all of them, but most of them, there is something to do outside of the arena. And I think for here in Ottawa, to me, that would be the biggest thing for people, just to have something to do, that if they go to the event, they can also go for dinner, they can also go for a drink, they can get there fairly easily, and it's not a huge hassle.
Yeah, and, I think the one arena, and, I think I've been, like you said, I've been really fortunate in my professional career to be able to have been to a whole bunch of arenas, so you get to see a lot of things. And the one place that always comes back to me is Columbus, because I feel like Columbus is a nice little city. It's comparable to Ottawa in terms of, like, it doesn't have this sprawling downtown. It's a nice little city, and the way that they have that arena district downtown, it's perfect. There's restaurants, there's hotels, there's shopping, there's parking. There's all the things, and if I could pick one thing, when people say, like, what would you like Ottawa's arena district to look like? I always say I wish they would go to Columbus and pick it up and put it down here. And obviously LeBreton would be the best place, but it's just this great atmosphere and this energy. And I think what's really disappointing too is you go back, like, I think we'd also have less of a problem. You guys correct me if I'm wrong. If the arena was basically where Centrum is, and those amenities from Centrum were kind of within walking distance, right? Like all of those, you think of the Jack Astors and the Montanas and the Kelsey's and all the restaurants that are there, okay? And if those were within walking distance, I think maybe we're having a different conversation, and then it becomes an even much different conversation if the rail line, the LRT, extends out to there, right? So that, you're right. Like, if we just want restaurants, we just want atmosphere. Nobody wants, the closest thing is a car lot there, right? Like the auto mall. Like, no, that doesn't, like, it doesn't do it for even Tanger. You can't really walk to Tanger, can you? From there. So,
well, I guess you could, but yeah, I know what you're saying. Especially in the winter, wouldn't be fun to cross the bridge to the highway to get to.
Lee's going across with his 5 shirts for $20 from Marshalls.
I've just found a candy store there, Ian, that has candies from the 80s. I was in it the other day. It's got Nerds. It's got whatchamacallits. It's got all kinds of things from my childhood and maybe your childhood as well. I was very excited about it.
Are they still, it's new candy or is it legitimate candy from the 80s?
No, of course.
That's 40 years old.
It's new candy, but it's from the 80s.
And Nerds never went away. They're still around.
Butterfingers were there. Oh, it was just...
You can have Butterfingers at a regular store.
You cannot.
Yeah, you can.
Yes, you can.
Just go to a Circle K. Go to a Circle K.
Lee.
There's one like 2 blocks from me. There's Butterfingers there. Like,
all right, fine.
I got to tell you, Lee, as with you being Tony Romo's biggest fan, I would have figured you'd know where Butterfinger is.
You know what? Every time you make comments like that, people are going to think you're not a Cowboys fan.
I am.
You, me, Garrett Gilbert, we're going to sit down next or 2 Thursdays from now, and we're going to watch them win, right?
You betcha.
I'd bet on that. I'll bet. I could care less about the Bucks. I'll bet big money on the Bucks winning. With that shoulder and knee, and he hasn't played a preseason game, Dak Prescott against that defense. Yeah, give me Tampa Bay, thank you.
All right. Speaking of
0-1.
I'm betting Ian's not going to come on anymore after holding him this long. But Ian, thank you very much for a great summer segment here on the drive. from The Athletic, and it was a very good article, even if we're having a little bit of fun here.
You know what? I just need Kenny Walls is producing. When you guys post the article to this on Twitter, I just want to say Mendez weighs in on cold water and nerds. That's got to be the hook.
AJ doesn't wash his hands.
Yeah.
No, okay.
AJ's mad now. That's okay.
Well, yeah, no, I am.
We know
because
you wash your hands, AJ.
anyone that washes their hands should be okay with cold to warm. That, like, it could be very cold, extremely cold water to warm is okay. Hot is not okay.
But in the middle of the winter, is it okay to be really cold?
You're indoors.
All right.
Like, you don't just, like, I'm pretty sure you didn't walk from your car to the rink without mitts, right? If it's really cold. You're going to have, like, everything else might be cold, but your hands should be warm because you had mitts. And then if you're going straight to the washroom, even if they are that cold, do you want to go really hot water?
I think Kenny's going to post the entire hour just on this segment, Ian. Thanks very much.
Exactly. All right, guys. Have a good one.
All right.
See you, Ian.
There goes Ian on the Gabriel Pizza hotline. Gabriel Pizza, the bigger, better pizza. You can order online at GabrielPizza.com. And AJ, if I'm freezing, I'm going in and then I'm washing my hands in really cold water. I'm probably not very happy. That's all.
It makes no difference.
If I'm cold, I want to warm up.
Well, I'm pretty sure you're not going to warm up just by putting hot water on your hands.
All
And
right.
I'm not sure that's the smartest thing to do anyways.
We're back with more of The Drive on TSN 1200.
The Drive continues on TSN 1200.
Welcome back to The Drive here on TSN 1200. Lever Sage, AJ Jakubek, and Kenny Walls. We'll get a Corey Price news update. AJ will have what you need to know. We have Canada-Switzerland coming up at 6 at the Women's World Hockey Championships. And an interesting note from the National Football League as far as coverage during COVID that we'll discuss in the 5 o'clock hour. You're listening to The Drive on TSN 1200.